to the Pig Daily. Today we are going to be talking about Zerg vs Zerg and how aggression is the key to the matchup. Thank you very much for joining me. Let's hop right on into game, and I'm going to talk you guys through Zerg vs Zerg while I play live. So there's going to be a series of games here. They're all going to be relatively quick, the way Zerg vs Zerg usually ends up. Now, why? Why is it going to be so quick? Because aggression is the key, and that is the name of the game in today's show. Aggression is the key. In Zerg vs Zerg, it's all about attacking. It's because that is how you play against Zerg. I'm going to talk about it more after this game. For now, let's focus on what I'm doing this game and what my game plan is. Now, in terms of the opening, I know there's going to be questions about 13-12. That's not something I'm talking about too much right now. I can talk about it a little bit more later, and I might even show you a slightly different opening, but I am going to be doing a hatch first. It is possible to defend your 13-12, your one-base Ling-Bane attacks with this opening, but it can be hard as well. If they surprise you, if you don't manage to scout it, things can be tough. But my real game plan is to do a very standard opening, and then to go absolutely ham with Ling-Bane and try to win the game there. And this is kind of the first stage of learning your aggressive Zerg vs Zerg, because you need to be able to do really good Ling-Bane pressure without messing up your micro. And if you can't do that, you're not gonna really get into a decent position. In ZvT and ZvP, it's a lot slower paced. Things are a little bit calmer, right? So people kind of can get away with being a little bit slower in the early game, a little bit less decisive. You can't do that in Zerg vs Zerg. So that's enough analysis for now. Let's talk you guys through what I'm doing. So I'm doing a hatch gas pool. 17 hatch, 18 gas, 17 pool. I'm going to drone up to 19 supply, rallying these guys straight onto gas, and I'll pull a guy off minerals and put him on gas in a moment as well, and of course replace that guy as I take him off. So there we go, and notice that egg's rallied there. That'll finish saturating my main, so I can transfer my rally points to my natural, build a 19 overlord, which I want sitting out beside my natural somewhere. Now my first overlord wants to go straight to their natural, very important to spot what's going on as soon as possible. But I've already queued it up to pull backwards so the queen can't kill it when it does pop out. Now I'm going to keep droning behind this. My second overlord going south because it wants to try and spot any sneaky zerglings from a 13-12. And this gives me roughly a 50% chance of that. Now here's a really important piece of scouting. I've just seen his second overlord pop out. How do I know it's his second overlord? The reason is because it's popping out about the same time this guy is. And because of that, and because I'm not doing an early pool, I know he's doing a regular build. He's doing a pretty standard build. No early pool is coming, easy peasy. Now, like I said, guys, my plan is to do a big Ling-Bane pressure. I like to build 4 zerglings. If you only want to build 2, that's fine. The important thing is to try and keep those alive on your opponent's side of the map, wherever possible. We see he's built about 4 zerglings as well. Now, I'm going to go for a third hatch, anywhere between 30 and 32 supply. And immediately after that, okay, I've added 2 more drones, but straight for a Baneling nest. Now, a lot of people think this is kind of greedy when they're starting out, but it isn't really. So I'm going to do just a little bit of pressure over here. And behind this, what am I doing? I've got my bases hotkeyed, I'm droning up to 33 supply. This overlord goes to the middle of the map, another overlord comes out. And from 33 supply, it is nothing but Ling-Bane. So from here, I'm not going to talk as much, guys. I'm going to be super focused on executing for the next minute or 2. And we can analyze a little bit later. Now, Eon Blue choking a little bit there. He does have a bit of lag playing cross server, but was not trying to get that to happen. So now he's found my zerglings. I pulled them back a bit late. I'm not going to be able to morph kind of forward banelings. I'm going to try and sneak some around to get some forward banelings going, because having forward banelings is really, really important. So let's get those banelings morphing, building some more overlords, and I've built a lot of zerglings here. But remember, guys, I'm all in. I'm just focusing on zergling production here. So I've just used control group stealing to steal those guys off my hotkey. My rally point's here, and I'm not hotkeying my eggs anymore. I'll talk about all these little adjustments later. And we're going to go into that base. GG. Quick, simple, cheesy. Wait a second. Did you just say cheesy? No, that was not a cheese. This was very committed, very heavy pressure. And you can see I got a bit of a cheeky grin on my face, right? Because this is something which came up yesterday when I was streaming. And a specific question actually triggered me doing the show this specific way today. And that question was... My ZvZ games are either me just defending and getting cheesed, or me cheesing my opponent. How do I stop just playing cheesy ZvZ? It feels like that's all it ever is. And I was like, that's not really true. I was like, what you're confusing is aggression and cheese. And that is because a lot of Zerg players don't understand Zerg. And this seems kind of silly, right? But because everyone gets in this mindset of I'm Zerg, they know how to play Zerg, they don't know how to play against Zerg. You're playing Terran. You're playing Protoss. It's all about defending. It's about absorbing what's coming your way. And then it's about fucking turning, your units into drones at the right time, your lava into units at the right time, defending, spreading creep, building an economy, right? There's this very standard macro-centric view of how to play ZVT and ZVP. In the early game especially, I have to deal with a Reaper. Now there's 2 Hellions. Now there's 2 Adepts. At a set time a bit later, there's 6 or 7 Adepts. But it's not as fluid as ZvZ. ZvZ aggression can hit you at any moment, at any time. And it can hit you really fast, right? But it's also important to be hitting your opponent. Why? Because if you think about it, you're playing another Zerg player. Think about how those Terran and Protoss players are playing against you as a Zerg. They are always hitting Hellion pressure, Banshee pressure, Ravens coming in, the Adepts hitting you, the Archon drops hitting you. There are these waves of pressure that hit you throughout the game. And the reason these exist is because if you do not pressure Zerg, Zerg is bullshit. Because Zerg doesn't have to build fighting units, they can just build drones. Or they don't have to build drones and they can flick a switch and just build fighting units. Playing against a Zerg isn't the same, where if they build a spawning pool in a roach warren, they might roach rush you. They very well might just not use the roach warren and drone up. However, if you scout a Terran building 3 barracks proxied on the map, you fucking know he's cheesing the shit out of you. It's a little bit more definite with the scouting, and the scouting information projects a little bit further into the future when you scout Protoss or Terran. When they have to invest in their infrastructure for an attack, it's a longer time before they can transform that into their aggressive army, right? A Zerg player, on the other hand, can say, let's build 20 Zerglings, and just go across the map and go straight back into drones. So it's very important for you to understand that Zerg can both be wildly aggressive or wildly defensive off what looked like the same thing just a minute earlier, right? And because of this, you actually need to keep Zerg in check. So you actually need to be the one pressuring Zerg and making sure your opponent doesn't just build 20 drones. Oh my god, he just built 50 drones with no defense and got way ahead. Oh man, this is bullshit, You don't want to find yourself saying that sort of stuff. At the same time, you don't want to just be like, I'm just going to defend. I've got a single baneling for defense. Oh fuck, here come 40 Zerglings. Shit, I'm dead. So pressure is important in ZvZ because it allows you to see things coming your way before it gets out of control. It gives you time to prepare. It forces your opponent to not be overly greedy. Generally, pressure and aggression are the things which allow you to force your opponent to play an honest game of StarCraft. You force them to stay in the middle ground. And this is what you'll see in high-level ZvZ. Both players are very aggressive because they both want to not give any room to the other player to pull any tricks, to pull the wool over their eyes and then just build a billion drones, or to just do a sneaky all-in and kill them. So what you want to focus on, guys, is being aggressive. Now, I have a guide out about this. I'm going to get a few different replays and upload them to Spawning Tool tomorrow, so that will be linked a little bit later. I'm not going to put the YouTube VOD up till tomorrow as well, once I've got all the appropriate material alongside it. But for you guys watching on stream now, check that out later, and there will be the builds. For now, you have the guide in Twitch chat, which I put there before. And that's not the link. I just linked you the wrong thing. It doesn't matter. I linked it earlier. Someone in chat can be nice enough to link it again. That'll be amazing. So, you want to be aggressive, you want to kick your opponent's ass. Now, first things first, let's talk about this build order. Aggression is the key. Why is this a good build? Well, if we go right back to the start, let's fast forward through and talk about the idea of 13-12. Now, if you're facing 13-12, you struggle with hatch first, you can do the exact same game plan, the exact same build order as this. You just change it up. So rather than going hatch, gas, pool, you go pool first. You go pool, gas, hatch. Or you can go gas, pool, hatch, gas. Doesn't matter. As long as there's an early spawning pool so you get a fast queen up and all that sort of stuff. That's what is important. That's what makes a really big difference, right? So this is huge. That there, simple adjustment if you're someone who's really uncomfortable against 13-12. Now, what about past this point? Overlord positioning. Remember what I said, guys. Overlord positioning is so vital in this matchup. Even when you're just pressuring, you need to send your overlords to the correct position. So what you need, Cuddle Bear says, I don't know, man, that map is kind of stupid for overlords. This is Giant Gnome, not Cuddle Bear, just in case anyone's confused. It definitely is on some of these new maps. It's a little bit hard. But basically, your first overlord needs to get to their natural as quickly as possible and get back. I gotta... Shh, guys, you're distracting me. Not really, they can keep talking. So you want to go there, you want to check the natural. This guy, like I said, you want to see if there's any Zerglings sneaking around the edge of the map. And this is something you do on pretty much every map, is they might hide Zerglings down and run along the bottom side of the map somewhere. So you want to usually send one of your overlords down the edge. And I sent this guy over the watchtower in case he sat on the watchtower, but you might want to just send it directly south. And that gives you a, roughly 40% chance of spotting any sort of early rush ahead of time. Now, with this build order, it's just straight into Zergling speed. You don't pull off gas. And if you feel more comfortable, you can go the Baneling Nest and then the third hatchery. Just remember, anywhere between 30 to 32 supply, you go third hatchery and Baneling Nest. And it's not even that defined. I like to go the hatchery first. I feel like it gives more of an inclination that I'm being greedy. It gives me that lava quicker. And I never really want to use the Baneling Nest any sooner than this one will finish anyway. But keep in mind, game timer. Let's use that game timer as a tough benchmark here, especially if you're a higher level player. You want that down by 2 minutes 50. If it's not down by 2:50, then you start to enter the danger zone. And shit gets a little bit dicey. So... Zerglings want to go across the map. Now, what's one thing I didn't bother doing here? I did not bother scouting beyond the third base. Now, why did I not bother doing that? Because I can rule out what's going on. Now, if someone's putting down a third here, same time as my third, they're doing the same build as me. This one piece of information says, technically you could be skipping Zergling speed and doing this, but it would be a terrible opening. If you're doing a gasless build, you're not going to have the mobility to defend that third with slow roaches for about 3 or 4 more minutes into the game. So taking this third is just silly. So I can assume basically, okay, he's dropped a third base at this time. I've seen the creep spread of his natural. I therefore know there's no real threat to me. I'm like, yeah, you could be doing the same sort of rush as me. Maybe you could cut a few less drones. Maybe from 28 supply, you could rush with Ling-Bane. But your Ling speed will be around the same time. Your Baneling Nest will be around the same time. Now, you'll notice this Overlord I've queued up just to move there. That was a little bit of a mistake. It should actually be queued up over here. Back on Overlord positioning, you always want to have 2 Overlords. Now, what I see as the #1 problem, even through to high levels sometimes, but especially in the middle leagues, is people just sitting their Overlord right there. Or even there sometimes. And the Queen can so easily just drop an inject, kill the Overlord, and not even miss the next inject. Be back in time to do that. You want your Overlords further back a little bit, but you're going to notice this kind of withdraws my vision. Zerglings could sneak out there, and this is what you never want to have. You want to have absolute vision outside your opponent's base. So you've got to have an Overlord like here, and that watches any drones heading towards the third as well, which will give you a tell of that. And the other Overlord wants to be probably about here. So either of these Overlords, if a Queen comes out to shoo them back, it needs to come very far out of that base, and you're still going to have most of the vision of the exit of their base to see what's going on. So this is your fundamental basics in your opening. If you can hide your Zerglings and morph Banelings on their side of the map where they can't fight it, that's fucking fantastic. Because in Ling-Bane Wars, it is all about being aggressive. So from this point, let's put this on my camera and let's talk you guys through the timing. You want to go all in with this Ling-Bane. Now, why do you want to go all in? Is this the eventual game plan? No. But this is the first way you learn to get better at the Ling-Bane phase. After we talk through this one, I'm going to play another game where I go up to the next phase of the build, where I don't just go all in with the Ling-Bane pressure. And then I'm going to talk about the final stage, which is playing more of what we would call a macro game. But even a macro game is very aggressive in ZvZ. There's a lot of pressure involved. It's a real mechanical tug-of-war. So you'll notice there, his Zerglings came to my side of the map. They chased my Zerglings home. So I didn't really get a chance to morph Banelings on his side of the map, and I needed to kind of chase his Zerglings around a little bit. I chased them probably longer than I should have. You should always have urgency to get to your opponent's side of the map, because a golden rule of Ling-Bane battles is it's always easier to attack than it is to defend, unless you have an anchor. So let's very quickly talk about this concept, and keep in mind why I need to be aggressive, especially with this style. An anchor is when you have extra queens or a spine crawler at your natural, and it is basically the efficiency in the Ling-Bane fight. If you think about the way Banelings versus Zerglings work, your Banelings need to be spaced out, right? Because otherwise, two Banelings can kill Banelings, right? The detonation of two Banelings. If you've got all your Banelings together, they're going to be waddling along in a ball, and your opponent's just going to fucking blow them up with two Banelings, and they're like, ah, you just lost the game. So you have to kind of spread your Banelings out and come in a staggered formation. It's a battle column normally, right? With spacing between those pairs of Banelings. However, if the defender has a spine crawler or a couple queens there, they can just focus those Banelings down as they come and spread out. If the Banelings say, oh shit, well, they're just sniping us down one or two at a time, we need to clump up. The defender has a couple Banelings that say, oh, you're clumped up, bam. That's the perfect defense in ZvZ. The reason we're not focusing on this goes back to just the fast-paced nature and the fact that if you invest in all that, your opponent could just be really greedy. But keep in mind, we're skipping that anchor. That's something you can go into a little bit later. You're not going to have it in this game. If you don't have that anchor and your opponent just spreads out Banelings and waddles them into your base, how are you possibly going to defend that? Single queen is going to kill like one Baneling with her little fucking knitting needles before they get in your mineral line. So that kind of screws you, right? At best, you're going to trade two Banelings for each enemy two Banelings. And this is assuming you don't make a micro mistake. Suddenly they're in your mineral line and you lose your whole economy. So without having an anchor, it's important to get the fight to your opponent's side of the map, because then you can basically just space your Banelings out, click them into your opponent's mineral line without focusing on it, and your opponent has to micro perfectly or they will screw up. What this means is your opponent's missing injects, they're screwing up macro, there's a good chance they're losing a lot of drones as well. Meanwhile, you can macro perfectly behind it, whether that be simply reinforcing your Ling-Bane all in, as in this case, or if you're transitioning. So here we go, I'm rallying Zerglings across, and let's focus on exactly what I did there. One more time. He's running around in circles wasting my time. I go, nah, fuck you. And watch my bottom display bar, guys. At this point, I go, oh shit, he's wasting too much time. I'm going to catch it. I'm going to find the exact moment. There we go. I literally oh, here we go. Oh, where is it? Where is it? Run. There it is. I boxed those Zerglings, and I used the alt command, the control group stealing, and I stole those onto a new hotkey. And you can see it materialize. There we go. I stole them onto number 5. You can see my hotkey right there. And I've just A-moved them at these Zerglings. I've said, I need to get the attack going right now. My Banelings are already finished morphing. I can't keep chasing this with everything. Control group steal onto a new hotkey and just chase after that. And being able to split your units into groups, super effective for these times where you can tell that your opponent's trying to buy time. So my Banelings there, not fully spread, but there's only 3 Banelings, it doesn't matter. Click them into the mineral line and start rallying in. Obviously, I try to focus down units. He doesn't really have any defense. Ends up being a very simple scenario. But let's talk about something else that I'm doing here as well while I talk about this Ling-Bane all in. And that is normally you're hotkeying your eggs, right? Every round I build of Zerglings, I hotkey the eggs, I add them into my control group, rally them in. In this scenario, I don't do that. Now, why don't I do that? It's because often my Zerglings will end up in the main base, having dodged some banelings, right? So if all of my reinforcing zerglings are on the same hotkey as my zerglings inside the main base, and there's banelings in between, you're controlling zerglings here, zerglings here, and there's enemy banelings here, and they're on the same hotkey, inevitably you're going to give them the fucking zergling sandwich on the baneling, and you're gonna take a terrible baneling hit. Either that, or when you're not watching, you're microing in their main base with your hotkey, 30 reinforcing zerglings are just going to come in and headbutt a baneling. So it's really important to do all sorts of awesome, cool little things like this if you want to have that mega high level micro. So what I actually do here is I just set my rally point on my hatcheries. Let's see if I've done it yet at this point. Looks like I have, to just outside my opponent's base. So whenever I've got spare APM, I've actually also put a camera hotkey here as well, by the way, guys. This is my rally point, which I normally, because I have 6 camera hotkeys. So 1, 2, 3, and then it's 4, 5, and normally 6 would be right here, but I put 6 here instead. So I go, I'm microing in the main base, micro, and then I just go, oh, and there's 20 zerglings sitting there. Morph more banelings, send the zerglings in. And this allows me to just keep sending those units in when I have the APM to actually focus on them. And this is what I end up doing, guys. Just non-stop zergling production. So I go do a round of injects, bring those extra zerglings, banelings. Notice, I don't really actively micro them that much. The banelings, by default, are just clicked into mineral lines where I know they're going to kind of do their job. That one there didn't do their job. Why? Because I was microing my zerglings against banelings on the front. But this is very important. Generally, like I said, you just morph your banelings kind of spread out. You click them in the mineral line. I already killed most of the drones in his natural, so I'm going into the main now. And as you get to that mineral line, that's the only point where you want to actually be controlling those banelings. And what you do is you select your baneling hotkey. Notice every time, by the way, you morph banelings, you want to control steal those onto a separate hotkey. Every time I morph banelings, I do that. I go steal onto hotkey 3, steal them onto hotkey 3. And what you do is you're microing up here, and as your banelings reach the mineral line, you go, oh, double tap hotkey. Obviously, you don't click there if you're actually in the game. And you go, let's assume we've got 4 banelings, and you right click on the clumps of drones. So what I would do is I would right click there, and then as I get a little bit more vision, as they get slightly deeper, I would right click probably on this drone here. Why that drone? Why that drone? Because I figure if a baneling coming from this angle detonates right there, it's going to take out all of these drones. But if I don't have a shift command, the remaining banelings will just go, oh, we don't have an order anymore. And what do banelings do when they don't have an order? Here's a fucking... This is a baneling. It's just like, and they will fucking headbutt into the closest wall. Basically, they will run into the hatchery and blow up a single larva. Or if you're very lucky, you'll have 8 banelings just headbutt a queen and not even kill her. And you'll just be like, you fucking idiots. So banelings always need a command. And this is part of passing up your APM and your actions, right? One of the biggest problems players have in Ling-Bane is they feel like you need to actively be microing every little unit. You don't. It's about setting yourself up so you can just fucking click that shit in, and then having the timing right to look back at it and give extra commands. And even at pro level, you will often see players miss their timing to go back and give it the extra command. The biggest problem players have who aren't pros is they freak the shit out trying to micro every unit. And sometimes they do more harm than good because they're trying to just run their banelings at the clump of zerglings. Their banelings all clump up, and the enemy banelings can kill them. Or they micro their banelings so hard, they get one good hit on the drones and the zerglings, they go, yeah! But they spent so long microing it, they haven't injected in 2 minutes. So what you'll find is, as you get to higher levels, the process is all about divvying up your attention, and you actually come up with set, organized systems for doing this. This is a situation you're going to encounter time and again. It's over and over again. You're going to fight Ling-Bane battles. And this is why this is such a great exercise, is practicing this all in, right? So, once again, banelings, as they get close to the mineral line, you just double tap back to them and you go click, shift, click. And you just want to hit these kind of central areas wherever the drones are all clumped up. You could click there on that drone. That would be a juicy spot, right? Anything like that is going to be beautiful. Now, remember, guys, yeah, your control group stealing the banelings every time as well. I think that's going to happen again here just towards the end. Let me show you guys. So it's on my camera. Now, what you want to watch is my hotkeys and down here. I'm going to morph a few banelings outside his base in a moment, just before the end of this game. Obviously, right now, it's just, you know, get zerglings in there. And I think I have time just before the end of the game. So morph banelings. And, okay, the game ended right then. Fuck my life. Ah, well. But basically, it's morph banelings. So I'll box the zerglings at my rally point. I'll go morph banelings, and then I'll go control click. And I will control group steal those onto hotkey number 3. For you, it might be 1 and 2. Obviously, everyone's hotkeys are different. And yeah, it works out really well. So that's most of the details of Ling-Bane stuff there. Let's look at a couple questions from chat quickly, see if I missed anything. Boolia says, what would you have done if you didn't scout the third base and you saw there were no drones on the natural? Can you still be aggressive in such a case? So let's say I see no third. My Zergling's like, okay, I would check the other third as well because it's Odyssey and it could be in either locations. And then let's say I go into the natural and I'm like, whoa, there's no drones here. The first thing I assume is it's some sort of attack and I would start building units. But I would be more focused on probably being defensive. But those Zerglings that are out there, I would probably still hide those just outside his base. So I can, because I can morph banelings and come in later. And I'm obviously just waiting with my Overlord, just staring to be like, it's going to be a Ling flood, right? A weird Ling-Bane flood. The thing is, that Ling-Bane flood would usually come out just as you're arriving with your Zerglings anyway. So you'd be like, whoa, what the fuck is this? Really weird for someone to do that off a hatch first, to not build drones on their natural. It's something people will do. But yeah, I'd just get my queens on my ramp at home. I'd make banelings. I would defend. But the moment I hold on at home, I would be fucking counter pushing him because I haven't invested in that anchor at home. So you can still defend with just a 2-queen anchor, pulling the queen from your main, especially since, you'll have more resources. So if you've droned up to 33 supply and then built Ling-Bane, you're in a good position. You're actually completely fine, right? You can trade 6 banelings for 4 banelings on the defense. It's not super efficient, but you're like, whatever. This guy's hasn't built drones, so it's okay, as long as I then counter push and get to go. Cool. Okay, guys, so gonna get up another game. We're gonna do that. Dude, I'm Special says, how about mixing 1 or 2 drones every macro cycle when you're doing a Ling push like that, to make you feel safer if your commitment does not end the game? I mean, you can do that. You're not committing as hard then, Dude, I'm Spatial, right? You can definitely choose to do that. I think for this exercise, it's important to just focus on ending the game with it. And if it doesn't work, that's fine. I think a lot of players always try to hedge their bets too much when they're restricting themselves with practice, right? If you're focusing on something for practice, give yourself that set goal. Because the moment you start hedging your bets, you're distracting yourself from what's important. And what's important with that stage 1 that we just went over there of let's open up with the normal build, but then just go complete commitment, just go all in with the Ling-Bane. The important part is it forces you to be tight on your opening, and most importantly, to get good at your Ling-Bane micro. And even if your first wave gets held, you would be amazed how many times you can break your opponent if you just keep rallying units and you just keep microing them well. You can break players. I win games with that in tournaments, guys. I win games with that against top GM players all the time. It's not a cheese, it's definitely a hugely committed pressure. But you'll see players like No Regret still do this and then transition into drones behind it, and it's like, holy shit, that's actually really cool. That worked really well. What would you do if... Okay, yep, cool. Answer the questions for that. All right, guys.